Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa podcast, fourth round FA Cup. What is this? What do we have to do? Seems very strange talking about a fourth round, considering we haven't been in one for absolutely ages. But we go to Stamford Bridge on Friday. Really looking forward to it. It's a big, big chance for Aston Villa to get into the next round. Chelsea are playing Middlesbrough in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup today, Tuesday. So interesting to see what side they field, how they go with that. But I'm really looking forward to it. Hannah, are you looking forward to it just like me?
I am indeed. It's like you say, it's a rare occasion that we get to one of these fourth rounds, and it's a good opportunity for us to progress even further. And I think now we've had a little bit of a break. Hopefully, we've got a refreshed squad a little bit, and it's a really good opportunity to go and actually do something in a cup competition, which would be an absolute treat, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. So, we're going to do something a bit different. We all know the last time Aston Villa won the FA Cup, but probably not many of us are aware of what happened the first time we won the FA Cup. So, got my book, right? Strap yourself in for a little bit of story time. And I'm going to read you what happened the first time Aston Villa won the FA Cup. We have to go back to 1886-87. And the title is Champagne Football. Villa's FA Cup run of 1886-87 exploded into life with a 13-0 first round win against Wednesbury Old Athletic. Still the club's record cup victory, followed by a 6-0 win over Derby Midland to take Villa to a third round tie against Wolverhampton Wanderers. The game ended 2-2 when the replay also finished all square at 1 goal each. Villa were unhappy with the FA's decision, and at the second round shouldn't take place at Wolves ground. Nevertheless, they gained another draw, this time 3-3. The third replay took place at Perry Bar. Freddie Dawson settled any nerves when he put the home side in front inside 10 minutes, and a second goal from Archie Hunter put Villa through a 2-0 scoreline. Right, this is where it gets really interesting. A bye in the round 4 and an easy 5-0 win over Horncastle brought a strong Darwin side to Perry Bar for the quarter-final. Villa were up 3-0 by half-time when champagne was produced and the players were invited to enjoy a drink. The interval indulgence almost proved costly as Darwin quickly pulled 2 goals back before Villa held on to reach the semi-final for the first time. So Villa on the piss at half-time when they were leading. So we go through that game. The semi-final draw paired Preston North End with West Bromwich Albion, while Villa faced Glasgow Rangers at Crewe. It was a game spoken about by many spectators as the finest they had witnessed. Rangers, strengthened by players from other Scottish sides, comprised practically a Scottish representative team, but Villa arrived in Crewe straight from a week's training at Holt Fleet, and within 10 minutes, Archie Hunter gave them the lead. Rangers equalised, but Hunter restored the advantage in the second half before Albert Brown made the game safe at 3-1. Meanwhile, Albion beat Preston by the same score, which meant a derby in the final at Kennington Oval. Now, just going to put something on the screen for you as well. So what's on the screen now is a artist impression of the 1887 Cup final. So this is what we've got on the screen here now. So this is the Villa in the final of the FA Cup. Villa returned to Holt Fleet for training the week before the final, while Albion made Ascot their training headquarters. After the unexpected win against Preston, Albion were favourites to win the first All Midlands final, but the general feeling was that the cup would go to the team that scored first. This proved to be the case. There was no score at the interval, but 10 minutes after the break, Hunter and Richmond Davis combined to supply Dennis Hoggett, who drove his shot past Bob Roberts to put Villa 1-0 up. As Albion faded, Hunter scored a second goal after 88 minutes to become the first Villa captain to lift the FA Cup. There we go. Justin, do you love my story?
Yeah, I love the history of Villa. I've got that book as well. It's a phenomenal archive of the history of Aston Villa, and you can literally as I'm sure you have, by the sound of it, spent hours just delving through and going back to all kinds of things. And yeah, the early history of football in this country is fascinating. You know, how everything evolved and how the FA Cup, came about, and interesting sort of facts like, Glasgow Rangers being in the English FA Cup at the time. So yeah, really interesting. Our history in it is unfortunately history. It's a long time ago. I mean, the 57 win was long enough ago, but I think the win before that was probably the same amount of time before that. So our record in the FA Cup post 1900s is pretty dreadful. So it's well beyond time now that we added another notch onto the FA Cup. For me, it should be Villa's turn.
Hannah, when you were at the third round at Middlesbrough, did you smell FA Cup vibes? Did you sense that the cup was coming back to Birmingham?
I didn't smell any champagne, which is maybe where it went wrong and why we didn't score until the dying moments of the game. It does feel different, doesn't it? Like they're games that feel almost like, I feel like there's less pressure and more excitement in a cup game, because in the league it's like, every single game you're working towards this big objective at the end of the season, and there's just like a lot of league pressure. But in a cup competition, it's like a nice to have, and you get to play some different teams sometimes, and yeah, they do have that slightly different, more special feel. So yeah, I did feel it. I'm disappointed to not be able to go down to Stamford Bridge on Friday, but working 9 to 5 and all that. But I think all those 6,000 that are lucky enough to be travelling down on a Friday afternoon will have an absolute whale of a time, hopefully, and even better if it's a win.
Yeah, definitely. So let's just take a little look then at the fourth round draw, and I'll ask each of you to pick your tie of the round, but you can't say Villa. So we'll kick it off first with Hannah then. So looking at those fixtures, which one of those are you sort of looking at thinking, I'm going to make sure I'm watching this?
Oh, right. This is testing my ability to read really quick. Obviously, we've got a Black Country derby, haven't we? The Baggies and Wolves. I think that's a brilliant one, isn't it? And I definitely would want to watch that. But beyond that, I'm not sure. I think maybe something like, to be fair, even the Sheffield Wednesday Coventry, which sounds really, really dull, but I feel like they're both teams that could go far, like randomly in a cup competition. So maybe something like that. But it's got to be the West Brom and Wolves game, hasn't it? Really, out of that pick.
Yeah, Justin, what are you going for?
I'm an FA there that jumps out the page for me. Newport County, Manchester United. Lowest ranked team left in the competition at home, which is what you want when you're a lower league team. I'd love them to back a massive upset. And the way Man United are at the moment, would you rule it out? It's a 1 in 100 chance, isn't it? Yeah, it's a 1 in 100 chance, maybe 1 in 1,000, but it might be this weekend. You don't know, dear. That's the one I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah. I've just got my eye on that Baggies game. I mean, it's one of them. They're all probably going to be holding hands, singing "We hate the Villa," shit on the Villa. They're all gonna like be arm in arm, singing it together, gazing into each other's eyes. So I'm gonna watch that.
I've got a feeling that's going to be a real anti-climax game there. I think it's going to be built up that much. I just think it's going to be built up that much. Wolves' record at Albion is dreadful over the last quite a long time. I just don't know. I just think it might be a bit of everyone's expecting to be a blockbuster, but it could be like a 1-0, 92nd minute or something, just really nothing in it game. Maybe even a draw.
Yeah.
Couple of red cards, maybe.
Yeah. Couple of nasty tackles.
It's going to be good. Right, so Chelsea are up next, and Villa have had a bit of a break, which has been good. Bit of a reset. Chelsea are coming into a bit of form. I think that, yeah, they're coming into a bit of form. They're not as inconsistent as what they have been. They still throw up the odd poor performance and poor result. But I look at Chelsea and I kind of feel like I don't know what I'm going to get with them. Like, they could be brilliant or they could be like really poor. And I think off the back of that semi-final as well, depending on what happens in that, it's a tough one to really look at, really. But if we go on SofaScore and have a little look at the form guide of Chelsea, you can all do me a massive favour and scan the QR code and download SofaScore, or in the description to this video, click the link and download SofaScore. It's free. Best football app going. You can have this app on your device. So it helps me out massively if you can click the link in the description and download SofaScore. But as you can see, you've got the form guide on the right-hand side. Quite green, doing all right, aren't they? Hannah, what would you say about Chelsea then? You know, our proposition of facing them.
I think Chelsea, they're a bit of an enigma, aren't they? Like, I feel like, you know, that everyone talks about the fact that they've spent an astronomical amount of money in the last 12, 18 months. And they don't have too much to show for it. They had a really poor league finish last season and started this season in a similar vein. Haven't really pulled together a run of form at all. You know, we beat them again already this season at their place. So I feel like we're facing a Chelsea team that, like you say, are a little bit unpredictable because they still do have the quality on the pitch. You know, they're not bad players. I think it's a little bit of that issue where, you know, they signed lots of names in lots of positions without really an idea of what their identity was or what do they want their style of play to be. And then because they've churned through 3 managers in a couple of seasons, you've constantly got someone new coming in and trying to instill a philosophy, and then they want to sign new players. So there's not been a point where they've looked like a cohesive unit. And I think teams have been able to exploit that. We've managed to do it because they've not had a solid foundation where you think if all else goes wrong, you know, this is the core of a Chelsea team and this is how they play and that's how they'll get a result. It's been so higgledy-piggledy. It's a great word. So I think, you know, we have the confidence behind us that we know we can beat them, and we have done at Stamford Bridge twice in the last 2 visits, haven't we? But again, you just don't know, and I feel like we don't want to go into it naive or underestimate Chelsea because it's still Chelsea. And I think we'll have a good idea, like you say, after tonight's game against Middlesbrough, whether they're going to, you know, go full 90 or are they going to go beyond that? How many of their first starting 11 are they going to play? That's going to have a big impact on the type of team we play on Friday, because obviously that's a quite quick turnaround. We've had far greater time to rest and recuperate. But also, you never know if it's going to go to added time or penalties. I'm not sure what the process is in that stage, but they could be playing a lot of minutes in lots of legs. And I imagine they'll want to go strong against Middlesbrough because it's you know, the semi-final, whereas, you know, the game against Villa, they might see it as it's a sacrifice they're willing to take. So I think we'll get more of an idea after the Borough game. But from where we're sitting right now, I think it's a game we should be looking at feeling quite confident against. We're a unit. We know how we want to play. We've got a really good core to this team now. We know whoever we bring in from the squad is going to be able to settle in and play the Unai Emery way. I don't know what the Pochettino way is, to be honest. So we have that upper hand, and I think that's something we can feel positive about.
Yeah, me and Justin. Well, Justin's going to do the opposition preview this week. He's good friends with the Chelsea lads, so who do a really good podcast as well. So one thing I really want to get a bit of insight when you do that episode, Justin, is like, do the Chelsea fans feel a little bit of like disconnect with the players? Because you know how we sort of like, we've got this tight knit group of players that have sort of been through a bit of a journey with us, and then we've added one or two each season, and we learn to love players like like there was a picture of Watkins and Moreno, and everybody's like my two favorite Villa players, and like Moreno's only been here a year, so I wonder what like the Chelsea fans feel like about some of these players that just sometimes feel surplus to requirements. Like this weird thing that they've got going on is that like if Conor Gallagher, if somebody bids for Conor Gallagher for the price that Chelsea want, they're happy to sell him. Yet he's starting every week, he's captaining the team every week. But if someone bids for him, they're going to get rid of. And I'm like, it really doesn't make sense. And I just think if I was a fan, I'd just be a bit like, this is just really weird. I mean, we'll go have a look now at some of their, these are top players of the top scorers from SofaScore from this season. So you've got Palmer, Gallagher, Enzo, Sanchez, Sterling, Thiago Silva. Who do you think should Villa be worried about? And why do you think they've got this weird thing that they seem to just be like getting rid of players? I know, because they spend loads of money, but to me, it feels really weird.
I think it feeds into the ownership that they've got, really. I think they've had such a prolonged period of success under Abramovich. He was lucky that he took the club over at a time where you could literally buy whoever you wanted to, and that's exactly what he did. And then that got them on the sort of pathway to glory, and then established them then in the top teams in Europe, for a very long time. They've obviously had a real dip of form, and then the ownership changed hands. I think Todd Bowley is a very poor Premier League owner, if I'm honest. I think he seems to be fairly clueless. I think, you look at our owners compared to them, and I think he just thinks he can do what Abramovich did when he first come in, just literally throw enough money at it, it'll work eventually. And football doesn't work like that, does it? You've got to have a plan, you've got to have a strategy. They've been through 2 or 3 managers now, trying to, turn it around. I didn't like Poch as a fit, to be honest. And I think when we were linked with him, I didn't want him to come. And I think he did okay at Spurs, but I don't think he's won a lot in his whole career. So I think he's probably got a bit of an inflated sort of opinion of himself. And I think football fans in general got maybe a bit of an inflated opinion of him. And it just hasn't worked there. And one of the bigger reasons is the amount of players, like you say, how can any football fan have a connection with any player at their club when you literally don't know who's going to come in the next window? We've seen like huge turnovers in players over like 4 or 5 windows now, and they're bringing in multiple players, like 6, 7, 8, 9 players every window. And they haven't been like squad fillers or youth players that they're trying to sort of develop. They've been like 60, 70 million pound players that any other club in the country will be thinking, okay, that's a starter for the next 10 years for us. That's the amount of money we're spending on him. So it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. But I hate to say it, over the last few weeks, they have looked like they're starting to slowly maybe try and drop a bit of form together. Now, whether that's because he's just dropped on a formation or they're just playing better at the moment, and they've just dropped on a way of playing that suits them. I don't know, but I think they have got a lot of quality players. I think they've got, I've just done a little bit of looking, they've got the 3rd youngest squad in the Premier League at 24 years of age. So that's very difficult to sort of establish a team anywhere near that top half when you've got a majority of players in the low 20s. I think they lack a bit of experience, apart from Thiago Silva, obviously at the back. When your captain is a player that, like you say, they're willing to get rid of, how can you have any substance or going forward? It's just all over the place, isn't it? I think they need a good 2-3 years of stability, but I just don't see that happening. I think the ownership would like pull the trigger the minute things just didn't work out for them. So Poch is under huge pressure. I think we go there in good spirits. I think we've had a nice break, and I think we've got a really, really good chance to progress. With Spurs playing City at home as well, if we can knock Chelsea out and they can knock City out, then I think it blows the FA Cup wide open for us. Yes, you've still got the likes of Man United and Newcastle and Brighton and Liverpool in there. But I think, one more round of decent draws, saying pitting a Man United against a Liverpool, And then there's so many teams in there that we're capable of beating quite comfortably. I think this is a massive game for us. I really, really think this is a massive game. Because yes, it's a bit disappointing that we've drew one of the bigger sides away from home, but we've beaten them twice in a row there. I think we've got a great chance of knocking them out. And if we do, I feel like the pathway to potentially at least a final could be open to us.
Yeah, and I feel like because we've sort of came through December, we had the point against Everton, we've had this week's break. I'm all right with us playing like a good team. Like, I don't mind, because I think we've had the break now. We haven't got no more excuses now, and we weren't making excuses anyway. Tiredness, etc. Blah blah blah. Like Chelsea, boom. Newcastle, Tuesday, boom. Like, this is the big time now for these players to step up, hit form, and get on a massive run. So it's great preparation. If we just have a little look at Chelsea's home record anyway this season, they're sitting in 11th place with 18 points. Oh, who's that at the top? Oh, that's Villa. Villa are still at the top on 28 points. So Villa's home form is still absolutely amazing. And their away form is that they're higher in the table with their away form anyway. So go ahead, download SofaScore. Helps this channel out, helps us grow. Means the world to me. So yeah, cheers up the Villa. Right, Hannah, how are you feeling then after this week's break? You're refreshed, and what is your expectation then? So what are we looking for now from now until the end of the season?
I think what you just said there is important about the fact that we're at the turn of the year and we've got two quite significant games, I think, in a week. So the Chelsea game on Friday, where we need to progress into the FA Cup. In my head, I think it's so essential to our season. We don't, even if we don't go on and win it as much as I'd like to, I feel like for breaking curses, for momentum, all these different reasons, we need to get far in the cup. So that's a massive game. And then next week, obviously, we'll do a whole new round of content about the Newcastle game. But just looking ahead now, a week out, that is a huge game because for many reasons, Newcastle obviously are struggling a bit this season. They've had a load of injuries. They're looking at selling players. It's gone a little bit south, but we know what they're capable of. We know they're a big team. We know what we did against them at home last season, a really, really like spectacular performance. But we also have to recover from the fact that they absolutely thumped us on the opening day of the season. So that game for me is huge. And like I say, big game in terms of the fact we're in a sort of new cycle now, going into this latter half of the season. We've had the winter break. We've got through the first half of the season in really good form overall, but we've had this little sort of dip where things have been slightly more up and down, still picking up points, but we've kind of dropped off performance wise a little bit, I think. So these two games are huge to sort of get back to where we were levels of the start of December, for example, when we were beating City and Arsenal at home. If we can kind of pull that off in the next week and get two really significant wins, I think that puts us in such good footing for the rest of the season. It kind of reinforces the confidence of the squad, of the fan base. The manager knows what he's got to work with because we don't look like we're going to have a busy January window. Nobody is. That's just the lie of the land at the minute. So we're not expecting a big shake up. So the shake up we need to see is sort of in the performances. And I think if we come out of this this next week with a couple of big results, we can go into like this next however many games, 18 or whatever, really hopefully quite confident and feeling like we can beat anyone. I don't want to get to the point where we get knocked out the cup and then we have a bit of a shaky one against Newcastle, because things start to eke in, don't they, when you feel like the dizzying heights of the start of December start to wear off. I don't want to get to that point. Momentum is so important, and we've seen that. Look at that league table at home. Momentum is why we're at the top of that table. We need to keep that going. We're obviously slightly less good away from home, but I think a trip to Stamford Bridge in the FA Cup is the perfect first test. And I'm still feeling really confident. I think I'm excited now. I think we have set the tone for the season in, up until the end of January. And we've just got to continue it. If you just think, right, we did it for those first 5 months, go and do it again. That's all we've got to do up until the end of May.
Yeah, and I've said this quite a lot, that teams have moments, and every team has certain moments throughout a season that you think, oh God, this was good. This spurred us on even more. And I think we've had some real big moments so far this season, like, some of the wins against like Chelsea, and then we've beat City and we've beat Arsenal. Those were really big moments, really big tests that everyone was looking at us thinking, well, can they? Can't they? And I think we're still going to have some more of those moments, and we need those moments, because I keep going back now. When you get to that business end of the season now, and that narrative in football is like, Villa have got no experience of going for Champions League. Villa have got no experience of going for the league. Villa can't do this. Villa can't do that. But we're actually a team that shouldn't be playing with that much pressure, because I think we should go into it thinking, you know what? Like, we're not expected to, so let's just keep doing our thing, keep going with what we're going. And I urge the fans to try and get to that stage that we were last season as well, when, we started to dream of Europe, didn't we? We had that little dream at the start when we thought it might be possible, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and you start getting last-minute winners like Troy Ray coming on and curling one at Leicester. You're beating Spurs at home. If we can get on that, like you're saying, that bit of momentum now, and it doesn't have to be like 18 games worth of momentum. It just needs to be a run. If we can get a run of something going, and that will probably do us and take us over the line. So I think we've just got to all be really positive and just believe in this team and believe in this squad, because I can't reiterate how big a deal it is for Aston Villa to get Champions League football. It absolutely propels this football club to a different dimension. The on and off field advantages of playing in the Champions League are absolutely huge. So we just need to harness positive vibes. And if we can do that, then manifest it. Right, go to bed every night thinking, right, I'm going to be next season, that anthem, I'm going to be watching them players walk out with that anthem. Uno is going to be like 100 mile an hour walking to the dugout. He's going to be walking next to like Ancelotti down the dugout. Like, whatever you can do, just think about the Champions League, because it's huge. So yeah, that's my thought on that. Right, last topic we've got. Hannah mentioned like no one's doing much business, but Aston Villa look like there's bubbles under the surface of some really exciting youngsters coming in. And I've kind of been doing a lot of transfer hubs sort of daily. So I've said enough so far about recruitment and transfers. And I don't think I've got Justin's thoughts for a while on it. So I've kind of sensed a little bit of a shift in the way in which we are going at attacking this window. We've got the young keeper from Iceland, looks like he's going to be coming in. We've got the young right back from Red Star, looks like he's already in. And we're looking at Rogers from Middlesbrough. So does that excite you, Justin? Because I've seen a bit of talk of like, we need here and now players, but I've tried to explain that sort of like 3 or 4 years' time, we've got the ability now where we can look ahead a little bit, and we haven't been there before. So what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's an interesting approach to the window, isn't it? I think the here and now players we've got, I don't really think we're desperate for at the moment for any real supplements to like what you'd class as first team regulars. I think there's enough to take us to the end of the season, and it looks like the club think that as well. But what they have done is they've obviously spent a lot of time highlighting and trying to analyse and picking players that could really add value in the coming years. You know, there's two ways to bring players in, isn't there? There's the ready-made superstars that we have to start looking at now, especially if we do get Champions League, that will come straight into the first 11 and make us better. And then there's players that every single elite club in Europe, and if not the world, are trying to find, is these hidden gems, you know, these little rough diamonds that are coming through at their clubs. And you know, we've spread by the look of it, we've spread the net far and wide to try and, you know, highlight these talented young players. And it's a difficult market to work in because, you know, the nature of the price of footballers these days means even that these sort of lower end players and young players coming through, they're still, that you know, it takes decent money to get them. But I think I've got so much faith in the club. I've got so much faith in Unai Emery because we know he's got the overall control of everything. Yes, he's got people around him like Monchi and other people that you know they're leaning on and sort of collecting data for. So I think, you know, if they feel that these players can come in and add value, whether that's in the short term, medium term, or long term, then I'm all for it. You know, you can't just buy players for the here and now. You've got to have, you know, players that can come in and that can take spots. I think we spoke about it before the window opened, that one of the areas I wanted us to sign a player was the goalkeepers. You know, I actually remember, I think I said to you, I want to bring in a young keeper that can learn off Emi Martinez over the next 3-4 years. Because, you know, Robin Olsen, for all the stick he gets, he's an all right backup. He's okay. You know, he's by no means the worst goalkeeper in the league. But what I'd want is a young keeper that's got real high potential that can come in and spend 2, 3 years, 4 years playing under Emi Martinez, the best keeper in the world, and developing to a point where, you know, you could potentially take over. You know, we've seen a lot this season, 2 goalkeepers on the bench. So, you know, we know the right back spot is somewhere we need to look at. So, you know, this player, by all accounts, I've never seen him play, but from what you hear and what you read, it's a bit of a coup to bring him in. So I like the strategy. I think it hopefully will bear fruit in the long term. And you've just got to make sure that you trust the process, I suppose. And that's what we're doing. You know, I trust this club. I trust the owners. I trust the management. And I trust that, you know, the people that are making decisions on on this front. So yeah, I think it's a good way to go.
Definitely. Right, let's do score predictions then. Hannah, you can kick it off then. What are you going with?
I'm going with a nice 2-0 win for Villa. Nice and
Love
comfortable,
that.
hopefully.
Yeah, love it. Justin?
I like this game. I think I'm glad we're coming back to the FA Cup. I don't like saying it's a free hit, but, you know, it's a hopefully no pressure game. We can go there, all guns blazing, and I fancy we're going to knock them out as well. So I'm going to go 3-1 Villa.
Nice, nice. I don't think either team's going to win. I think it's going to be a draw. Yeah, I think we're going to get a replay at Villa Park. I think 1-1 is what I'm going with. That's just come in my head. So 1-1 from me. So we'll have them at Villa Park. Yeah, right, cool. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed the episode. A little bit of history at the start. And then we've just gave our thoughts on Villa and Chelsea. So for score, link in the description. Before you go, click that link, download the app, helps us. Cheers, up the Villa.
Up the
Villa.